quarter of the time. Every chance you get. Quarter, three-quarter, three-quarter, yeah.
You were headed like an auctioneer or something.
Hello, sir.
order. For all those who can, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we approve our agenda, just a quick note: we do have 2 absences today. We have Councilmember Cox and we have Mayor Ryder, who are both excused absences, and we also have our interim city manager with us tonight, Mr. Rick Walk. And with that, we move on to the second item on our agenda, which is an approval of the agenda and consent agenda items. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve the agenda and consent agenda as posted.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion about the agenda or the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously, which allows us to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is public recognitions and presentations. And tonight we have a Lacey Youth Council public presentation. And if you guys are ready, it looks like we have Nathaniel Clay, Rihanna Joseph, Nathan Miller, and Sarah Town, and some additional members of the Lacey Youth Council. Will you guys be presenting tonight something? And who will be, was it all of you guys? Come on up to the podium.
Hi, Council. Let me put this up a little bit. Okay. It's an honor to be here tonight, and I appreciate you guys and your willingness to hear youth perspectives. My name is Rihanna Joseph. I am a senior at Riveridge High School, and I am also a Running Start student. Because I am a full-time Running Start student, I don't regularly attend my high school campus. However, from other students, I've gotten some input about what's going on at the school. I am a National Honor Society member, and we recently had our blood drive, which was a huge success. We partnered with Bloodworks Northwest, and we had around 80 donors within the school. We also had our induction ceremony where we inducted 12 new members. Our winter sports have been doing relatively well, and we've had a lot of school spirit within our home games. Additionally, some of our BSU and multicultural students are preparing for our MLK assembly, which is scheduled for the second week of January. Academically, staff and students are just finishing up work for winter break and the end of the semester, which is around the time we return to school. Thank you.
Hello, I am Nathan Miller. I'm a senior at Pope John Paul II High School. Our jazz band and choir had a concert last week at the Virgil Clarkson Senior Center. Each class adopted a family with Salvation Army a couple weeks ago in order to provide them with food and gifts for the holidays. Our Christmas break is coming up pretty soon, next week, and tomorrow we will have our day of service in which all about 100 members of our school will go to various service locations and work there for part of the day as part of getting into the Christmas spirit of giving. And additionally, tomorrow we will have a food drive partnered with the Thurston County Food Project from 9:30 a.m. to noon, and anybody who wants to donate non-perishable food items is welcome to do so. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Town, and I'm a junior at North Thurston High School. And as for updates, we're doing a school-wide community service project where students bring in cans to their second period class, and the cans that are brought/donated are donated to the Thurston County Food Bank. And then also, girls and boys basketball and other winter sports are currently underway in their season. FBLA and FCCLA are having a blanket drive for the Children's Hospital. For robotics, the North Thurston team took first place in the last league competition, and they're heading to interleagues on Saturday. And then Honor Society is doing a campus cleanup after school this entire week. And that's it. Thank you.
Hi, I am Nathaniel Clay. I am a junior at Timberline High School, and yesterday we had our yearly winter warmth service project where we make blankets and donate them to those who are in need. We made and donated 148 blankets, and that is great. Today, I think it's starting right now actually, and tomorrow we are having Winterfest, which is a performance from all the arts, drama, orchestra, band, choir, and that is happening today and tomorrow. And for sports, our girls basketball team has won their 3rd consecutive game in a row. That is all. Thank you.
Nice. Okay. Well, thank you guys all for being here, and thank you for those updates. We really enjoy having the youth council, and thank you guys for being willing to take time out of your day and out of your school year to serve our community. We were once in high school too, and believe it or not, and serving the community and being on youth council is not something I remember doing myself, but I really appreciate your guys' efforts. Next item on our agenda is our public comment part of our agenda. We have several people signed up for a public comment, and we will be starting with our Zoom public comment. We'll get that out of the way first. But first, I'll read our public comment announcement so that we're all on the same page. So public comment is the opportunity for the community stakeholders to inform the Lacey City Council of their respective views on issues or items. The City Council does not engage during public comment time. When you are unmuted, please provide your name, city of residence. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak and provide input. So our first person for public comment is Emily Cisneros, and she'll be joining us hopefully via Zoom if John has her ready. And if that person's not ready, we can move on to...
Deputy Mayor, they've declined to speak tonight.
Okay, all right. Well, then we will move on to our list of public public sign-in sheet. Do we have Erica Schumann with us tonight? Okay. Please state your name and the city that you live in, and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Erica. I live in Olympia. I'm an emergency room nurse at Providence St. Peter Hospital. The statement I am about to make is my own and in no way represents the viewpoint or opinion of the hospital I work at. I am here today to discuss some very hard topics. But first, in order to truly understand the severity of the situation, I'm going to walk you through a scenario. I want you all to take a moment and imagine how you felt on the worst day of your life. I know it's hard to relive these emotions, but I need you to step into the shoes of the patients I take care of every day to understand the crisis we are seeing. Go ahead and think of those emotions. Maybe you felt sad, scared, angry, or anxious. And now I want you to take those emotions and imagine that your loved one is very sick and you desperately want them to be seen in the emergency department. You are scared for their life. When you arrive in the ER, you expect to be seen quickly because of how sick they are. But when you get there, you see a long line at the check-in desk. You wait in line for 30 minutes just to be registered. You are crying because you fear your loved one is getting sicker. Once you reach the front line, your loved one gets their vitals taken and gets an armband with their name on it. You and your loved one are then sent to wait in the lobby. 2 hours pass. You feel more and more anxious that something bad is about to happen to the person you care about most. Finally, you hear their name called, and you head to a triage room with them. A provider quickly screens them, places lab and imaging orders. Your loved one gets their lab drawn, and you are sent back out to the lobby to continue to wait. While you're waiting, your loved one seems to be getting sicker. Concerned, you go up to the nurse that is checking everyone in by that front door, and you attempt to tell her that your loved one is getting sicker. The overwhelmed nurse says, "Sorry, we're doing the best we can. We're still waiting for a bed to open up." You wait with your loved one for 5 hours before they get a room in the ER. You finally feel relief when you tuck them into the stretcher with all the monitoring cables attached. You feel so exhausted from waiting, so you kiss them on the forehead, you give the nurses your phone number, and head home to get some sleep. You feel at ease that your loved one is finally getting the care they need. Not 2 hours pass, and you get a phone call you feared the most. After doing everything they could, the ER staff tells you that your loved one has passed away. This is a very hard story for me to tell because it's a true story. And every single day, the nurses of St. Peter's are living with the guilt of what if. What if we had ER rooms that were open to see our sickest patients? What if we had enough working equipment to do our jobs? What if we had adequate staffing to safely care for everyone that walks through our doors? The reality of the situation is that we are understaffed, and our emergency department is full of admitted patients. Our staff is already overworked. Every nurse is doing the job of 2 nurses, and we're only receiving one 30-minute break in 12 hours. We have lost a significant amount of nurses due to keeping so many inpatients in our ER. My coworkers have asked me, why do I stay? And I stay because this is my community. This is the hospital that an ambulance would bring my family to. I am here today to ask for your help from the community to address this public health crisis. We all need to be able to trust in our hospital system in our time of need. We need to make Providence feel the pressure of the needed changes, and we desperately need Providence to retain our experienced nurses. As a member of this community, I am asking you to help us as we help you. We're asking you to issue a supporting resolution for all healthcare workers from this body to the public. Additionally, I'm asking that the board support the safe staffing legislation being introduced at the state level next year so we can see a future beyond this crisis. To recruit and retain healthcare workers, there has to be hope for something better. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Elizabeth Henderson.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Henderson. They call me the emergency room mama, and there's a reason for that. I am an ALS, which is the Advanced Life-Saving Transport Nurse. I'm an EMT, and I've been in the emergency room for almost 20 years. I protect and I grow baby nurses, and I can't do that right now. I've been asked to take 21 patients by myself. 21. Our actual census for the emergency room has not increased. If we had rooms in the back, our ER would be empty in the lobby, good quality care, but we have a bunch of boarders. 5 days ago, there were 51 patients sitting down in the emergency room, 12 of those in the lobby who were admitted. They don't get their fluids, they don't get their medicines, they don't get anything. Imagine you, your family members, your children. I'm a pediatric specialist also. Okay, so imagine your 3-year-old comes in and she's coughing and she's gagging, and 3-year-olds, it's always respiratory before they die. You're really behind the ball. But I can't take care of them. There are 2 nurses on my shift, myself and Twee. 2 of us. So we're out in the emergency room in the front lobby with 4 rooms to see 50 patients in the lobby, because there are 51 patients in the back waiting to go upstairs. I'm an emergency room nurse. If you are shot, if your heart's not working, if you can't breathe, I'm there. This is the face you freaking want to see, because I'm going to save you. But if you're some little old lady laying in the hallway and you say, I got to pee, I'm like, I'm sorry. I can't help you. And that breaks my heart. Because that could be your mom. I have a provider who took a photograph of an elderly woman sitting on a bedside commode outside our break room with no clothes on, going to the bathroom. Where's the dignity? I'm sorry. She said it all. But she's my baby. They are all my babies. I don't care what floor they're on. I don't care if they're ER or ICU. We are nurses. If you want us to care for you we need to fix this. I know that this is not Lacey. It's an Olympia problem, but it's not an Olympia problem. I live in Lacey. This is a Lacey problem. Olympia has just kind of gone, whatever. We need to be aggressive, and we need to slap them. Sorry, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next we have Andre, and I don't want to butcher. Oh, okay. Then we will move on. It looks like we have a Sky Henderson. Is Sky here today?
My name is Sky Henderson. I live in Lacey. Almost every night I see my mom come home in the morning exhausted, seeing 21 to 22 patients a day while she's working. Every night I hear the horrible stories of little kids dying because they're not able to get the care, because there's not enough nurses to care for them, because there's 50 to 52 boarders waiting for rooms upstairs. I was in the MA program at Severn Sound. I've heard all the horror stories. I've heard from my classmates of them not being able to get their parents seen before they die. Our nurses are reaching their breaking point, and so are we. Something needs to be done.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Sky. And it looks like the last person we have on our sign-up sheet is Katrina Zimmerman. Is Katrina here?
I didn't prepare a speech, but I'm going to speak through my heart. My name's Katrina Zimmerman. I'm an ICU nurse. We're adults. We can solve everything. We're here to discuss on what we could do to be able to move forward, to improve our community, to help our community better. There's a big staffing problem, not only in Providence, in the whole community, country. I need your help to pass the safe staffing law. I'm going to tell you why. You can only go to the ER on an express pass if you have a stroke or a heart attack. You won't be seen by any nurse if you have a fever. The thing is, people die from sepsis. We don't know these signs and symptoms. We have baby nurses in the ER. They don't know what they're doing sometimes. Only 1 or 2 pioneered nurses are there, and they can't take all the job. For what we miss our breaks to be able to cater to each patient. One thing I'm afraid of is that if we miss something very important, we're gonna miss something to save your lives. We are all equal here. Homeless, a counsel, an attorney, a lawyer. If you go to the hospital, we're all equal. If there's no help from somebody, nobody could recognize that symptom that you have, you're dead, it's too late. I need your help to pass the safe staffing law. It's very important. It's either your mom, your child, or yourself. We're so overwhelmed, we don't take our breaks because there's no enough nurses working. Our meds are late because we don't have enough people to help us through this. I don't know. They always have an excuse for, oh, it's because of COVID. No, this is a problem that has been existing, and you need to do something about it. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And thank you for your comments tonight, all of you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address this council before we close out the public speaking portion of this?
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I got a chance. Mm-hmm. Thank you for having us. I thought I had 2 minutes, so I'm going to relax a little bit because I got 3 minutes. So again, my statement is my own. It does not represent my hospital. These are my words. My name is Ann Staley, and I am a charge nurse on the 11th floor at St. Pete's. I've worked there for about 5 years. And our floor is what's called an ICU step down, but the way I describe it is that we are not quite intensive care, but we're just kind of too sick for anywhere else. So our patients are often very unstable, and we're just trying to keep them out of the ICU and get them out of the ED. Our floor, so the ratios that we typically have, they really, really matter. Like I said, our patients are very sick. What we're meant to have is 3 patients per nurse. And for many, many, many months now, we have had 4 patients, then sometimes 5 patients. Now we can find ourselves with 6 patients. And this matters because this is happening hospital-wide. We are moving staff to try to fill these holes, and the holes are there for a reason, and the reasons are very big, and we feel pretty helpless. The thing about our job is that, we're there to do our work, and the work, it doesn't go away. It actually never gets done. And the work doesn't go away if you have more patients. You just have to do that much more work. And the thing about our work is that our work is you. It's you, essentially, and it's your family, and it's your community, it's our community, it's your neighbors, it's your coworkers. All of you are the work, and this work it's very personal. Our work it's toileting, it's feeding, it's medicating, it's educating, it's grieving. There is something to this work that is so personal. Immediately, as soon as I walk in your room, we have an intimacy that is incredibly unique, and that's why we do it. These tasks that fall on a single person. They just cannot get done. We also deal with aggressive patients with safety risks. We deal with anger, confusion. We became experts at this during the pandemic when fear and separation was the regular, and this is all part of the work, right? These are nurses, we're heroes. The thing is that we are defeated, we feel abandoned, and we came here tonight because we don't know if people know the extent. If you don't actually see it for yourselves, you may not know the extent. And this work is our passion. Some of my team is here. We're made up of incredible humans that chose nursing as a means to serve and to do so with compassion and with healing. And I no longer believe that Providence shares these values, because if they did, how could they let this go on for even one more day? We need solutions that are creative and immediate, and we need to be a part of that conversation. It seems that all the solutions that we get are impractical and simply just create more work for us. We survived the pandemic, but the moral injury and trauma from that time hasn't even been touched, because this crisis is actually way worse. There's no vaccine for a system that has just simply lost its way. I fear that my work family, who are the people that you'd want taking care of your family, that I would want taking care of my family, are going to leave, because this is just too hard and the cost just feels too high. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to thank you all for your comments, and thank you all for coming out tonight and bringing this. We're listening for our rules of engagement for public comment, but I'll read them just again real quick.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. Public comment is the opportunity for community stakeholders to inform the Lacey City Council of their respective views on issues or items. The City Council does not engage in dialogue during public comment. So when you are unmuted, please provide your name and your city of residence, and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Hello, City Council. My name is Emily Cisneros, and the statement I'm about to make is my own and in no way represents the viewpoint or opinion of the hospital I work for. I work at Providence St. Peter's as a registered nurse. I'm here to make you aware of the medical staffing shortage affecting our communities here in Southern Washington. If we do not address these short staffing now, it will only get worse. The reality is that for most floors in the hospital right now, the workload is overwhelming. Under normal circumstances, the nurse's patient load would be 3 to 4 patients, depending on the unit. Now, due to short staffing, the majority of floor nurses are forced to take on average 6 to 7 patients without any supportive staff or CNAs. On more than one occasion, a nurse has been told that they would have to take more than 7 patients. I can only express how dangerous this is for the patients. We are trying so hard to care for them, but it is impossible with such high to nurse-patient ratios. For the staff working like this, it has caused a vicious cycle of burnout, resulting in increased sick callouts and worse, staff leaving the acute care setting permanently, which makes the staffing shortage worse. Hospitals like mine are trying to find solutions for this shortage, but are not doing enough. Within the acute care setting, the patient's safety relies on the ability of trained medical staff to recognize deterioration in the patient quickly and alert physicians to prevent further decline. With less nurses on the floor who are now responsible for more patients, there is an increase of negative outcomes for patients. It is dangerous to be a patient in the hospital with the current staffing crisis, and it will continue to be with the increased number of patients nurses are responsible for. Not only is it unsafe for patients, it is also physically hazardous for staff. Though, if you ask a nurse what their biggest concern is for taking 6 to 7 patients, putting their license at risk will likely be the #1 answer. Not only do we risk lawsuit from patients and their families, we will also be responsible for staff under us who we delegate tasks to. With increased staffing shortages on all sides, nurses are more willing to leave the nursing profession altogether than risk their license. If nurses refuse to accept an unsafe assignment based on unsafe staffing ratios, they fear they will be reported for patient abandonment to the Nursing Commission. Thus, they will continue to be forced to put the patient's welfare or their own license on the line. This is no longer about how long it takes to get your coffee or your water. It's about how long it takes to start your IV anticoagulant when you have a clot in your lung that can kill you. There's a difference between the crisis staffing that we are currently dealing with and changing a unit matrix to require less staffing or less nurses on staff. Passing a safe staffing bill for our community will prevent ratios that are dangerous to patients and staff. Those who oppose mandated staffing requirements argue that an absolute staffing requirement is unrealistic for every patient setting, like long-term care settings, and they are in some cases correct. Different patient acuities require different staffing, but safe staffing standards can be written to accommodate those concerns, and we must always hold big businesses accountable when patients' lives are on the line. As a member of the community and as a nurse, I'm asking you to help us as we are trying to help you. We're asking you to issue a support resolution for all healthcare workers from this body to the public. Additionally, I'm asking the board to support the safe staffing legislation being introduced at the state level next year. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your comments. Well, thank you for bringing this safe staffing law to our attention. I can't say as a city that we can jump on board I can't say that we can do anything about this, but we definitely appreciate your comments, and it is definitely worth you guys being here to bring this to our attention, because we all have day jobs too. And in fact, I know at least 3 of us are licensed at our day jobs, and oftentimes go through the same risk as you do, risking our license if we take an action of some sort or another. So, as our heart is with you, and I enjoyed your heartfelt comments, I really did, and bringing this to the attention of the council and to the city staff. I'm going to just say it was the right thing to do. So thank you for your comments, and I'll just leave it at that for the moment. You're welcome to sit through the rest of our council meeting if you would like. And we will move on to our next agenda item, which is under ordinances. And it looks like we will be reviewing Ordinance 1631, and the presentation will be from our Finance Director, Troy Wu.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Miller. Good evening, City Council. For your consideration tonight is indeed an ordinance that will designate certain reserves as committed. The ordinance does follow the guidance that is provided by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 54. We were here before the council about a year ago, but since that time, there are some changes that certainly warrants the council reconsidering this issue. There are additional fund balances for the council to consider. We have spent some of those reserves as designated by the City Council, and there are new priorities and initiatives that have been expressed by the council, most notably the police station and the regional permanent housing project. As I said, we're looking at committed reserves. Committed reserves are the highest level of designation that we are authorized as a city to take action on, and that action is required to be taken by the City Council. We'll also be talking about assigned reserves more indirectly, but those are historically been delegated to staff, specifically the city manager and finance director, to assign. Those are also for very specific purposes, but just at one step lower than the committed reserves. In terms of, I won't go through the entire list. You do have the ordinance before you that does list every single reserve, but I would like to highlight some of the more significant reserves as well as some of the changes that we are proposing for the City Council. The first is a redesignation of the Gateway Development Investment Reserve of $8 million, which will now be a committed reserve for the police station, which will bring a total $8.7 million of committed reserve within the current expense fund. Within the Arterial Street Fund, there are two significant committed reserves that are in the ordinance. One is for $18 million of real estate excise tax that will also be committed towards the new police station, and $18 million for transportation improvement plan priorities. There is a $5 million committed reserve for the development of Great Cuyo Park, Phase 1A. And there's $1.4 million for long-term financial planning for the regional athletic complex, and $2.5 million for future green fleet conversions to address the 2035 mandate to convert all vehicles to electric. I will point out what is not in the ordinance. I will remind the council from the discussion last week, the $3.5 million for the regional permanent housing project. The council did highlight that as a priority for future reserves. We will take a look at the actual revenue expenditure results of 2022, and any surplus reserves, we will look to this project first as an assigned reserve. So we will be able to take a look at that later, or actually early into 2023. But again, that will be the first priority for assigned reserves. The ordinance also continues the historic action of council to, again, authorize the city manager and finance director to assign reserves throughout the year, that are consistent with the intent and express desire of the city council. So the request of you tonight is to adopt the ordinance establishing the designated reserves for 2022. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Does anybody want to?
Yeah, I would move approval of ordinance number 1631, reserve designation.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I know we've had a lot of budget talks over the last month and a half since we all got the 1-inch book, and there's a lot in there, and there's a few things in this ordinance. Troy, I was just going to ask on the 3.5 that we have agreed to hold over and re-examine in early. Were those guys expecting to hear from us at a certain point in time in the first quarter, or how does?
Well, there's a distinction between the reserve and the budget. The reserve designations, they're really just a communication by the city council as to what their desires and their intent are. Mm-hmm. It isn't any sort of authorization to spend, but having said that, the $3.5 million is in the proposed budget, which you will consider here in a moment. So it will be obligated. It's just a matter of how that $3.5 million will be applied in terms of the reserves, but it is in the budget. We will be able to communicate to our regional partners that there is indeed an obligation at $3.5 million.
So our intent to our partners is clear?
Yes.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on this item? Okay. Well, then it has been moved and seconded. And with that, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. And we will move on to our next agenda item, which is our 2023 budget adoption. Again, Troy Wu, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. As the Deputy Mayor stated, we have spent a lot of time on our 2023 budget. This is the final step after 3 different public hearings and much discussion, like I said. There are just a few changes to the budget compared to what was actually published back in October. We did talk about slight adjustments to property tax, as well as the tuition reimbursement for employees, as well as some minor changes in our legal services budget. The most notable change is the $3.5 million that we discussed during the previous agenda item. Again, this is $3.5 million that will be in our social services budget, and it will go towards the Franz Anderson Tiny Home Village and Permanent Supportive Housing Project. So with those changes, the total proposed 2023 budget is $182,069,133. This is a decrease of about $13.4 million. This is certainly not an indication of any sort of reduction to service levels, but really more relates to lower capital projects in the 2023 budget compared to 2022, as well as the associated transfers and use of reserves for those projects. The total 2023 general fund budget is $64,159,814. This is a decrease of about $2.9 million. The reasons for that decrease are very much the same as the overall budget, just lower capital improvement projects in this budget. In terms of, I certainly want to recognize the council for your guidance throughout this process. Like I said, we've had lots of discussions, so I appreciate the clear guidance, and I do believe this budget reflects all of that guidance throughout the process. I do want to recognize Scott Spence, outgoing city manager, for all of his leadership in this budget, always making sound decisions, always thinking about the future for us, really set us up going into the next few years. Certainly want to recognize the efforts of my fellow directors and all of their staff, really, paying attention and being prudent with public funds, and really made my job a lot easier. I do want to recognize Shannon as well. She sat through many of the staff meetings throughout the process and provided, very good input going through that. I would be, very ashamed not to mention finance staff. Christy Wolf is in the back here in the audience. Her effort, along with Chelsea Arwood, I really can't say enough about their effort, their dedication to this project. There's also Marika, Alex, Sadie, Matt, Violet, Carrie, Deanna in finance that certainly had their hands on the budget. Couldn't have been done without them. So in closing, I think the 2023 budget, as I've said before, is one to be proud of. It is meeting the increasing demands of our service just because we're a growing city. This is a budget that helps preserve our investment in infrastructure. It continues to meet our capital needs and addresses priorities and future planning for the city. So again, this is a budget to be proud of. So with that, I will turn this back over to council for any discussion or questions. And of course, we would recommend adoption of this ordinance setting the 2023 budget.
Move to approve ordinance number 1632, the 2023 budget adoption.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt this 2023 budget. Is there any discussion? I know we've discussed it in depth for weeks at least, if not months. Councilmember Kunkel.
I just want to extend my appreciation to the staff for all the hard work. I am very proud of the city of Lacey and the staff, particularly for having a solid budget and a conservative approach to budgeting. And my hat is off to each and every one of you for doing a stellar job. So thank you. Thank you for all your service.
Councilmember Vasquez.
I think there's a saying about compromise, that a good compromise is demonstrated when nobody's satisfied with the outcome. But this budget is remarkable because we've managed to meet a lot of the needs of a growing city, right? We didn't have all the money to do everything that we might have wanted to, but this is an excellent collaborative budget where we're recognizing the need for growth and adding positions and adding funding in a lot of the right places that are going to set us up strategically for the future. So I'm really delighted by the work that staff did to get us to this place. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Stedman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would say even though this budget is 2.5 million smaller, the general fund than last year, it does double the dollar amount for the citizens and people living under this budget.
Speaking of 2.5 million, I noticed that was our vehicle amount for our electric vehicles, and it seems as if every time we get close to actually getting an electric vehicle, the manufacturers say, "Oh, sorry, no, you can't have it," and then they rip up our invoice and our order, and then say you have to reorder and charge us more. So, in this budget, I was just wondering if that. I know that you guys are, fiscally conservative, and I appreciate that. And if we do have another one of those situations where we have to pay another 20% again,
What budget amendments are for?
are we just going to amend, or do we have enough built in?
I will say we have tried to predict the crazy market that's out there and trying to address the supply chain issues. I believe we increased the vehicle estimates by 20%. I think we did the same thing last year, and obviously we missed the mark, but I hope that 20% is adequate for 2023. But if not, we will, of course, come back before the council for an amendment so we could make sure we make those purchases.
Awesome, thank you. I know that our maintenance team depends on having vehicles to get out there and get some work done, so.
As Troy has told us every year, the budget's a living document,
Yep.
and it's good for about 5 minutes after midnight on the first, and then we start doing the amendments, right?
That's spot on.
Well, hopefully not too soon. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded, and it has been discussed. So let's vote. All in favor of this ordinance and adopting the 2023 budget, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, seeing none, then that passes unanimously, and we have passed a budget for 2023. So thank you for all of you guys' hard work, because, man. Okay, well, we will move on to our next agenda item. And in this next agenda item, we'll be reappointing a planning commissioner. And I think we'll be doing this via Zoom. Am I right? Or is that person going to be here with us tonight?
I don't believe Gail is in attendance tonight.
Okay.
She was able to make it.
Okay. So we weren't able to have Gail with us tonight, but I will read the appointment into the record. And let's see here. It is my pleasure to advise. Oh, sorry.
We need to vote on it first.
Okay. Apparently we need a motion first. Sorry.
I would move reappointment of Gail Madden to the Planning Commission.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I would just say myself and Lenny served with her personally on the Planning Commission. She's a wonderful asset to the city. She's a great person. She definitely put in the work. She'll cross every T and dot every I.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, I also had the opportunity to serve with her when I was on the Planning Commission, and she helped me understand what it was to be a planning commissioner. She's really, really smart, and I'm glad she wants to continue serving.
One other thing, Deputy Mayor, I always like to say that, we have a majority of the council that were past planning commission. There's 4 of us now, including Councilmember Cox, too. So that's very unique, and, Gail could easily do everything we're doing, too, as well.
Okay. Well, it has been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, that motion passes unanimously, and with that, I will read the appointment into the record. Dear Gail, it is my pleasure to advise you that the city That the council meeting on December 15, 2022, the Lacey City Council confirmed your reappointment to the Planning Commission. Your reappointment is for a second term, which will expire on January 2nd, 2026. We know that a member with your background and ability will be a great benefit to the Planning Commission and to the community as a whole. We appreciate your willingness and commitment to this responsibility. Your attendance at regular and special meetings is critical to the productivity of this organization. We look forward to continue working with you. Sincerely, Andy Ryder, Mayor of Lacey. I will sign in his absence tonight. Which brings us to our next agenda item, which is the city manager's report. And we will be starting, well, first of all, our city manager is now our interim city manager, Rick Walk. And if you'd like to say a word or two, please do.
Well, great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. And really, I don't have really much to say other than to introduce that we have 3 items under the city manager's report tonight. The first being a contract for jail services with Nisqually Jail for the council's consideration and approval, and Chief Almada will present the topic tonight.
Thank you. Good morning. Good evening. It's been a long day. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Honorable City Council. First, I'd like to say thank you for your commitment to public safety. It's been evidenced throughout the budget process, so thank you very much. Today, in that same thought, I'm asking you to approve the Nisqually Jail Services Agreement. As you know, since the late 1990s, we've contracted with Nisqually Tribe to provide jail services to augment our need for housing of in-custody folks. To do that, we reserve a guarantee of 15 beds in this current contract. We've had a contract which expired in 2020. However, they've been honoring the terms of that agreement while we negotiate a new contract. This new contract is for a total of $673,000, $425 total, and guarantees 15 guaranteed beds, and will allow us to meet the needs of the community moving forward. There's also an escalation built into this contract to moving forward. So with that, it also meets the WTIA expectations that we requested for insurance purposes. They've increased their liability coverage to $10 million, as well as revising inmate medical processes. Also, we've been conducting inspections of their facility, and they've been very cooperative and very good to accommodate our needs. So I'd also like to commend Commander Upton for his work on this contract.
I would move for approval of the Nisqually Jail Service Agreement.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this, please?
Yeah,
Councilman
just
Stern,
one
sir.
question, Chief. So 15 guaranteed beds, is that enough? I mean, does that accommodate what we need on a typical basis, or?
Yeah, in the interest of fiscal prudence, we were a little higher than that, frankly, and we looked at our average use, and 15 does meet the mark. There is a capacity within the contract to expand that when needed, so we are able to do that. We have 15 guaranteed beds, which most agencies aren't able to get that. It's only because of our good relationship with the Nisqually Tribe that we're able to achieve that.
Thank you.
I was determining whether there's additional spaces available, which I enjoyed seeing that because typically we don't. So what is our average usage?
It ranges usually between 11 to 15 beds in that range, but averaging around 15 beds.
Okay. So if we need more, they're willing to accommodate at this same rate. I noticed that the rate. I talked about the rate with Scott, and I asked it, because it looks like this we'd been out of contract for like 24 months, somewhere in that ballpark.
Approximately, yes.
Approximately 24 months. And of course, and I said, hey, there's going to be a rate increase. There has to be because of the cost, And so, but I was also told at the same time, he's like, yeah, maybe there is going to be a little bit of a rate increase, but at the same time, we don't have as many people going there as we did before. So in that respect, it kind of balances out a little bit.
Correct. So with the legislative reforms that reduce the amount of folks going to the jail and kind of reduce our need, because our arrests are down based upon some of the new legislation that's come out. As you know, pursuits are not pretty much allowed under the new legislation except for very, very narrowly defined circumstances, which precludes a lot of people from stopping when the officers attempted to conduct a vehicle stop too, and that would generally lead to an arrest. In a lot of circumstances, we're not able to do that now. So that tends to drive down arrests for a variety of crimes, including warrant arrests and different things.
Okay. Okay, well, it has been moved and seconded. Let us vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, seeing no opposition, that passes unanimously, and we will move on to our...
Yes, our next item, continuing that theme, is an interlocal agreement for municipal court services for consideration and approval by the City Council. And Assistant City Manager Shannon Kelly-Fong will be presenting this matter.
Well, good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members. I am here to go over a district court interlocal agreement. And for the past 40 years, the City of Lacey has contracted with Thurston County for court services through an interlocal agreement. Our current interlocal agreement will expire this December 31st, and so we have been in negotiations with Thurston County for an extension. The interlocal before you tonight is for a 4-year agreement for court services. And this would be based off of filing fees. So for every filing that there is with the court, the city would be paying for those services. It's estimated that the cost for court services will be around $325,000 to $425,000 here in 2023. There is an annual cap for each year of the agreement, and the annual cap for 2023 would be $430,000. I do want to clarify that the staff report does say a 6-year interlocal agreement, but it is for a 4-year interlocal agreement. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Entertain a motion.
Move to approve the interlocal agreement for municipal court services.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? No? Okay. I went over this, and I noticed that it looks like overall the filings have come down since 2013, from 2013 to 2021. Are we just seeing less crime, less arrests, less?
So there's a multitude of reasons why we've seen a reduction in filings over time, and I certainly welcome the chief to add on, as well as our city attorney, Dave Snyder. But some of the reductions have been because the city has discontinued red light enforcement programs, about, I think it's around 6 or 7 years ago at this point. In addition, there's been some changes on how we approach driving while license suspended in the third. There has been policing changes at the legislature, as well as policing priority, and then there's also been the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as kind of the post-COVID-19 environment. And so there's a lot of reasons why there has been a decrease in filings over time, and I'd certainly welcome the chief again for any input you'd like to add.
Yeah, so absolutely right. COVID greatly impacted the way we did proactive law enforcement. We really wanted to minimize unnecessary contacts, so that had an impact. Then the legislation also had an impact, so there was a lull in police contacts while at first we needed probable cause to contact folks, and that was amended in the 2022 legislation. So now you're seeing a rise in police contacts. So we're starting to catch up again, doing more field interviews, which lead to more contacts where we find folks that are in violation of warrants. So those folks go into custody, and that you find a weapon, you find narcotics, you find stolen property, those kind of things, which lead to charges that will go to district court. So now you're going to start seeing more, frankly, but we're kind of coming out of that lull now. So there's been baseline, now we're kind of starting to rise up again. So you'll see an increase in activity moving forward.
Gotcha. Thank you. Well, it has been moved and seconded. Oh, please.
I know there's significant, or was significant, backlog for courts.
Yes.
Courts. Is that still the case? Is it getting worse? Are they getting through a lot of those cases? Do you know?
I think I'll let City Attorney Dave Snyder refer to that.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Lacey's done a really good job in court of staying on top of its caseload, and we are, as a result of that, not experiencing nearly the backlog that other jurisdictions might be. So, jury trials, for example, we're on top of, and there's always a there's a significant number of cases for every jurisdiction where individuals have failed to appear and there's maybe a low-level warrant out, and eventually they're going to get back into the system. So there's maybe a higher level of those than maybe in years past, but overall we're very comfortable with the current caseload that we're holding.
I would only add that Dave's done a great job of hiring some really quality prosecutors, and they're keeping on top of the caseload.
That was the one thing I noticed that I wanted to point out was the amount of jury trials in the last, since 2016 I think it's only been 9 or 11.
Yeah, we do a couple a year but yeah, very minimal. We, I mean, it's a huge expense, but that's not to say that cases aren't resolved appropriately and accordingly. It's just there's usually middle ground somewhere that can be found.
Yeah, and when I was looking at it, I thought, well, there's some really good negotiation going on there, some really good table talks happening there, which is keeping us out of the financial portion of these jury trials.
We have cases reviewed, officers made discussions with defense attorneys before their first court appearance, and those dialogues never stop. And that's usually the key to finding a resolution.
The treatment courts have a pretty good impact too on the amount of jury trials, right?
They
A lot of
do.
people go through the treatment court system.
Lacey participates in Thurston County Mental Health Court. In fact, Lacey had the very first participant ever in that court. It was a Lacey case that opened that court. And so opportunities like that, in addition to Veterans Court, provide opportunities outside of jury trial or a standard plea and probation for a lot of individuals.
Well, it has been moved and seconded, does anybody have anything else they want to add? No? Okay. Well, then it's been moved and seconded to authorize city manager to sign a 4-year interlocal agreement for court services with Thurston County District Court. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay. Seeing none, that passes unanimously.
Yes, and our final item is the amended 2023 federal legislative agenda, and Shannon will continue and present that one as well.
Council members, at the December 1st council meeting, as we reviewed and adopted the 2023 federal legislation priority agenda, there was some conversation about considering the addition of the Homes for Every Local Protector, Educator, and Responder Act, also known as the HELPER Act, to the city's adopted 2023 legislative priorities agenda. Provided to you tonight in the staff report is more information on the bill. And in brief summary, the bill would provide mortgage assistance to law enforcement officers, elementary and secondary school teachers, firefighters, and other first responders. And these individuals would be eligible for a one-time mortgage on a primary single-family residence, mobile home or condo unit with no down payment and no monthly mortgage insurance premium. This is very similar to the program that is offered to veterans through the Veterans Affair. I have added as a draft to for you all to take a look at and consider some language to an amended 2023 federal legislative priorities agenda that would support the HELPER Act. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this additional language.
So I'm in the Granicus now, and under that tag, I'm looking at not the correct addendum.
Yeah, it looks like we have the...
It's District Court Services Interlocal Agreement again.
And that's my fault. I should have saw that before we even got started.
Yeah.
Councilmember, I'd be happy to pull it up to the screen here
Yes.
so that
Okay,
we can all
great.
take a look
So I
at
mean,
that.
we've seen this before. Just added something to it, right?
Correct. And so you can see it is number 10 down here.
Yeah.
So you can see item number 10 here, which would be the support for the Homes for Every Local Protector, Educator, and Responder HELPER Act. And the language reads, the city strongly supports the HELPER Act, which would create a home loan program within the Federal Housing Administration, allowing first responders across the country to obtain a low-interest, fully insured home loan with no down payment and no monthly mortgage insurance costs. This program would make home ownership more affordable to our community's law enforcement officers, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, and pre-K through 12 teachers.
Is there any other avenue to that? Is there anyone else that is not clearly listed as far as people that would benefit from that program for the Helper Act?
Currently, in the form of the bill, those are the individuals that would benefit from this program.
So, basically, I mean, in this situation where if we add this to our legislative agenda, that means that, you know, we're going to be backing this, we're going to be pursuing this, we're going to be asking our people to help facilitate the passing of this bill, lobby for it. And I haven't seen, you know, everything there is to see about the bill, and I still don't really understand how they're going to, you know, give a VA loan to what essentially amounts to a VA loan to a non-VA person. So, and I understand, you know, the mortgage insurance is supposedly absent, and the you know, the down payment is removed. I still haven't, you know, really seen how they're going to do that, which doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't advocate for it, but I'm still kind of confused on that part. Councilmember Kunkel.
I don't know. I just would like to learn more about this before I'm fully on board with it.
Councilmember Stedman.
I would say for someone who has earned the benefit of veterans home loan and has used it twice, once currently in my house right now. You know, my wife works for the school district, and you know, the community is always talking about teachers not making enough money and finding creative ways to make that field more, I don't know, how would you say it? Yeah, attractive for, you know, retaining and having people become teachers and stuff. I like seeing that, you know, people that are equivalent basically to military service, like our first responders being available for this as well. I think it's a good thing. It's not the VA, I don't believe, right? It's a separate program. They still have to have good financials and all that stuff, but I'm in full support of this because of who it's going to and what they're doing to earn that benefit, if you will, being a veteran myself.
Councilmember Vasquez?
I think there are a lot of different ways to serve, right? And this list of folks that the helper program would help is not all inclusive, right? There are other groups that we might be thinking of that it would be nice to be able to extend this benefit to, but this is an example where I don't think we should let perfect be the enemy of good. This would do good in our community, right? And I love the idea of, as Councilmember Stedman said, making it more attractive to go into these industries, whether it's EMTs or nursing or firefighting or teaching. And so if this program gets us closer to that, I would like Lacey to stand in support of this legislation.
Yeah. And so I definitely don't mean to sow a seed of doubt. I think what I mean to do is you know, as we support this and back this and say, hey, yeah, let's let this be a part of our legislative agenda that we have for the upcoming year. During that period of time, you know, I'd like to learn some more about it so that I can, you know, better advocate for it. And so that's really what I'm getting at with this. You're right. Perfect should not get in the way of good, and this is a step. And I want to see how this step works as we advocate for the step.
Deputy Mayor, maybe I can provide just a little bit more information on what is currently in the bill as presently written. So in brief, it would apply for individuals who have been employed in these capacities for 4 or more years, with the intent that they would continue to work in these capacities for at least an additional year. Individuals must be in good standing at their place of employment, and this is intended to be a one-time use, so it would be for one purchase. And like I mentioned earlier, it's really intended for a single-family residence or a condo for a single-family residence or a mobile home. You know, mentioned that there would be no down payment, no principal mortgage insurance, but that this is also for a principal residence, so a place where this individual would be living. And this would be at the obligation of the mutual mortgage insurance.
Okay, well, did you have a comment, Councilmember Grayson?
I'm in support.
Okay.
Again, we'll have to wait and see what the legislature actually votes on, because that could change dramatically before there's any votes. But, you know, as we know, Congress doesn't necessarily vote on the bill as it first appears. So,
And one more, sorry, Councilmember, one more thing that I neglected to mention in this brief overview is also the bill as currently written has a 5-year sunset. So this would be good for 5 years unless extended by the legislature, should it be adopted.
Okay, so not only is it a...
Where does the down payment assistance come from? If it's a zero down loan, FHA typically is at least 3.5% down, correct?
Yeah, but they're not saying that this is an FHA deal.
They said FHA.
Did
Federal
they say-
Housing Administration? Isn't that what it said?
So,
Okay, so in order for it to be FHA, it doesn't necessarily have to conform or fit to all of the FHA guidelines. For example, the Native American, the 184 is also an FHA deal, but it does not have the same mortgage insurance parameters, nor does it have the same down payment requirements as the typical FHA deal that you're used to seeing in the industry.
So what is the main reason why we're trying to promote this? Is it just the cost of living is too high, and we're trying to make it more balanceable for our emergency service folks and our teachers? Okay, so we're talking about trying to maneuver around the free markets is what we're trying to do with this.
I think we're trying to help the people that weren't here an hour ago.
We are maneuvering around the free markets. So
it's very similar to a VA loan. I mean, VA loan does the same thing.
Yeah.
veterans earn that
So does
ability
USDA.
to use
USDA
the
does
VA
same
loan.
thing.
Yeah.
So again, my intent was not to sow a seed of discord among the council. It was really just to say, hey, as we go along with this, and as it's added to our priorities, we will be seeing more information come through on it. Well, we have to vote to add it to our list. We don't have to necessarily. I don't think we're saying we're not writing a letter endorsing it.
I will say this is, these are the people that educate our kids and treat us when we're injured and stuff like that. A lot of them are, in their first 5 years of being employed, and so their salary to rent or mortgage is, 40% or more, which can be argued that they're in poverty, And so this is a great tool that would help attract people into that field and keep them around, so our kids are smarter in the future, and they're not dealing with leaving the work that field, and then we have shortage of workers and stuff. It's a benefit, and it's much like one that veterans earn, but these people are doing frontline work too themselves, in my opinion.
Much needed carrot in the community. It has been moved and seconded. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. It looks like that motion does pass, and so we will add that to our list of legislative priorities for the upcoming year. Which brings us to our next agenda item, which is standing general committees, and I will start. It looks like we had our November Financial and Economic Development Committee meeting on the 22nd. I think this was already briefed on, but we can touch on it just again real quick, because most of it had to do with things that you saw in the budget earlier tonight, with the one exception of the item where we need to make the adjustment for change the effective date for our Social Security coverage. And I think we covered that 2 meetings ago. And so, okay, so if that was covered, then everything that was in the November 22nd meeting has been covered, either through our budget presentation or through our previous meeting. So then next we have general government and public safety.
I'll take that one. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we had our November 22nd meeting for general government. The gist of the meeting, a municipal court services contract update, We provided an overview of what has been seen over the last couple of years, how the city is working towards a new interlocal agreement with Thurston County District Court. City pays for services based on a schedule of criminal or traffic infraction filed. Different things had different fees. And we pretty much covered this earlier for the, yeah, so I mean, I feel like this is a little redundant.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was a very informative meeting. I'm just going to close with that.
Okay, so it looks like on our agenda we have some things that we went over in our, was it our December 1st meeting? Okay, and was land use another one of those items that we did cover pretty well on the December 1st, or would you like to? Okay, so these are no.
We haven't covered the neighbor commercial forum in the council meeting, have we?
We got a briefing on it.
Work session.
Yep, sure did.
Okay. Okay, then I will not keep us on items that have already been covered. Moving on to our next agenda item, boards, commissions, and committee reports. The mayor typically goes first on that, and he is excused, so we will move on. I am next in line, and just real quick, one of the I don't necessarily have a report because mine haven't really met. The EDC has not met again since the last time I briefed, and LTAC wrapped up in September, and as well as Thurston. TCCAT and Thurston Thrives. However, LTAC did receive a letter from somebody that we funded. I don't know if you guys know, we funded a rugby team, and they want to base their operations here in Lacey. And we funded a rugby team. Yeah, there's a new rugby team that wants to base itself here in Lacey, and they really appreciate the fact that we met with them, sat over at the table with them, asked them a few things, and said that we are 100% fully in support of what they are trying to do in the city. And so I think we will be probably the only city in the county, if not this Western Washington, that actually has a rugby team that's based out of their location, and they actually have some improvements that they would like to add to the RAC as well, if I remember right. And so, Jen, do you have anything you want to add?
I just want to add that it is the Deschutes Rugby Club, and we did have them at the park board meeting this past meeting to thank them for their donation of rugby goals, permanent goals at the rec on Field 4. And there are some ideas for future improvements, but nothing's been solidified yet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I really like that one. We funded a lot of events for next year, so you guys should have a very busy summer if you're into getting out to the events, and I'll just leave it at that. Next, Councilmember Cox, who is excused. And then we have Councilmember Greenstein.
I have no report tonight.
Councilmember Stedman.
I just wanted to report the Community Action Council met yesterday. We had our audit report, and contrary to what you might have read or in the newspaper or seen in last year, we had no findings, no nothing, perfect audit again. I think it's like the 40th straight year. And then other than that, I wanted to give a couple numbers here on community development block grants. They served 206 people, 621 individuals, almost $500,000 went to helping people in most vulnerable, and that's about it. Really, for the most part, we had a CEO evaluation, and we had their employee thing here, right here at South Puget Sound Community College today for their Christmas thing, and it was a great event. I attended it, and I just wanted to thank each and every one of those staff members at the CAC. They work feverishly every single day to make Christmas every day for people that are less fortunate. So they never get enough thanks. They just, they work like crazy, and they do it a lot like the nurses we heard earlier. They do it because it's their passion. They love it, and so hats off to them. They're great.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilmember Kunkel.
So I have two short reports, one for Joint Animal Services Commission. We met Monday the 5th, had a brief meeting which included adopting our 2023 budget, and we discussed next year's meeting schedule, and it was the briefest JASCOM meeting that I have ever attended. For Solid Waste Advisory Committee, we met on the 7th. We had a hazardous waste facility design presentation done by David Nightingale, who has a significant background with the Department of Ecology and a trainer on hazardous waste management. And his presentation was about 6 common missed opportunities in hazardous waste facility design, where he's traveled all over the region and has given examples of what not to do when planning for hazardous waste management and disposal. And some good information there. It gives us some ideas on how we're going to be improving our solid waste management in the future. And we also covered our work plan for 2023 and had a brief manager's update. And that is my report.
And Councilmember Vasquez.
I have several reports. I'll try to be brief. So intercity transit met, and something that I'm going to speak to later when I get to my report on the Thurston Regional Planning Council is that there is a letter circulating that TRPC has put together expressing concerns on behalf of the Thurston region on the proposed airport. So intercity transit took action and indicated their support for the letter that TRPC is drafting. We also approved their strategic plan and budget plan and safety plan. Seems like a lot of business gets done in December in a lot of these different boards. So intercity transit got a lot done. Orca met just yesterday and established a personnel committee. I think I mentioned that before. And I was appointed as one of the 3 members of the personnel committee. And what we intend to do on the personnel committee for Orca is 2 things. It's not intended to be a long-standing committee, but we're going to be providing guidance to the contractor that's performing a salary survey for Orca staff, and we're going to be establishing performance measures for the executive director of Orca. So just making sure that his contract is, being met, and then he's meeting the scope and the goals of his appointment on that board. The Board of Health met. And boy, did we have a lot of things on the agenda. We're getting a lot of business done now that we're finally all together. So they've identified David Bain as the public health director for the county. So congratulations, emergency management folks. You can have Kurt Harden back. He's been temping in that position for quite some time. Yeah. The Nisqually Reach Septic System Monitoring Program was something I was not aware of, but it has been an extremely successful program to reduce pollution in the Nisqually Reach to allow shellfish harvesting to happen. It's been going on since 2013, so we got a briefing on that and how successful that program has been, with a future action by the Board of Health to continue that program in operation. So there's going to be some public outreach about that. We also had a presentation on the opioid settlement that is kind of coming to a lot of jurisdictions within Washington State. And we approved the continuance of the Standing County opioid response plan, which is a necessary component of receiving funds through the opioid settlement. So we got that done. The Board of Health also provides contracted care to Lewis County. Like, we provide nursing and family partnership and health services to Lewis County through Thurston County. So we continued that contract as well to continue providing services to a smaller county. And last but not least, at the TRPC meeting, we heard about grant awards. So lots of different organizations within Thurston County go to TRPC and ask them to go fight for us to get grant money. And Lacey was the winner. Lots of grant money is coming to us through the federal grant program, but Lacey's getting the most out of anybody that submitted requests for funding. So we're getting $3.9 million to support one of our projects, which means we're almost capped out at the amount of money we can get through TRPC through that process. But that's coming to us to support our College Street corridor efforts. We're also on the contingency list for funding we requested for the Pacific Avenue Depot District Plan. So if more money becomes available, that's high on that list. The other thing that we talked about was the letter that TRPC drafted to express our concerns to the CAC about the airport. So the letter is lengthy and detailed. It's about 3 pages long, and it doesn't just say, we are opposed to the siting of an airport in Thurston County. It goes piece by piece, and it addresses process, climate impact, housing and sprawl, transportation and equity, agricultural impacts, and salmon impacts. So it is a comprehensive sort of overview of the reasons why we have concerns about siting an airport in Thurston County. And we didn't take action on it during that meeting because several of the board representatives wanted to bring it back to their councils, their boards for review. And I know that this council has already expressed concerns and opposition to the airport, but I wanted to share that that letter is being reviewed right now, and we'll probably take action on it in January. Those are my reports.
Okay, that is awesome. I was going to ask you about the TRPC's position, because in the last communication that they put out, they didn't have a position. If you guys remember that, and I think I was a little concerned, and maybe some of you guys were too, but they didn't have a position, and now so they have formulated a position, and Intercity Transit has jumped on there as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't either, but as you know, when it was. It's still in the air at the TRPC level. I was concerned.
Is that an airport joke?
I've seen one on Facebook. Really? Literally one. Yeah.
One person in favor.
In support that I've ever
I mean,
seen.
one of the issues that we talked about at the TRPC meeting is that everybody's opposed to it, right? There was a Seattle Times article about this, but every community they're considering has expressed vehement opposition to the airport. So we're not sure what's going to happen because the legislative committee that gets to make this decision is going to land an airport somewhere.
Well, that's the real problem, right? Is there's no community that wants it in their backyard, but it's going to go somewhere.
Right.
So.
And the interesting thing was, they still haven't told us what the numbers would be on a fully built out Payne Field. Is that still the case? Because that might solve the problem. And then Pierce County has 2 locations. Both of them would handle 20 million annual passengers, and they have opposition for both. Okay. They got an airport. They got a racetrack. Okay. Well, at the risk of sounding like we're trying to push this off onto some other community, I do want to. I do want to say that, the $3.9 million that we're getting in transportation funds, Mayor Ryder is on that board and plays a big role in pushing our agenda and getting things on the tip. So thank you for that. And, well, if that's all we have, does anybody else have anything that they want to share with this council?
I just wanted to say thanks, Scott Spence, for all your service to Lacey. We sure appreciate you and wish you the best. And I'll, for one, be coming and visiting you in Astoria on a fishing trip, hopefully.
I've said the same thing to Scott. And, interestingly enough, this is our last council meeting of the year. And so thank you, council, for everything, for all the work and all the committee meetings and all the grace that you guys give me to lead these meetings, and all the staff members and you guys for even showing up. I know it's your job. But it seems like we get a lot done, which I'm very happy about. And we all are going to miss Scott. I know it, because most of us are going to miss Scott. I know because there is no replacement for Scott. But we'll see what happens. And thank you, Rick, for stepping into this role. The best thing about that is that you know everything, which I'm comfortable with saying that. I'm comfortable with saying Rick knows everything.
No pressure. There's over there that know a lot too.
And has a lot of people that he can go to if there is something that he mysteriously does not know. And with that, then I will, we've reached the end of our agenda, and I will call this meeting adjourned as usual. You keep it classy, Lacey, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.